In this video, we'll be taking a look at 5 college basketball games happening on March 5th, 2026, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 10 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 5 college basketball games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start. If you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Sacred Heart versus Iona. This matchup is not just a random Sacred Heart against Iona game slapped into a neutral gym. It feels like 2 different brands of controlled chaos colliding in Atlantic City, with both seasons hanging on that thin one and done thread. One side comes in looking a little cleaner in the standings and with that quiet confidence of a group that believes it can actually string stops together when it matters. The other side brings that energy nobody really wants to deal with in a single elimination spot, the kind of team that is perfectly fine if the game tilts into something wild and uncomfortable. The favorite has spent this season learning to live with a few ugly trips on offense as long as the pace stays where they like it and the defense keeps its shape. They are happy to grind a possession, take the right shot instead of the first shot, then hit you with those quick little 3-point bursts that flip a game before you even finish your drink. The underdog, on the other hand, leans right into volatility. They are comfortable racing up and down like it is a Saturday open gym, exchanging layups for open threes and trusting that their own shot making will eventually cover for the cracks at the back. If you watched the meeting earlier in the season on Sacred Heart's floor, you saw that play out in real time. The favorite walked away with a double-digit win by hitting more shots from deep and doing just enough work on the glass to keep the Pioneers chasing from behind. That kind of result matters here because it shows which side already proved it can handle the other's preferred chaos and still stay in control, even in a true road setting. Now throw all of that into a neutral arena with tournament tension, different sightlines, and fans from multiple schools buzzing around, and every trip suddenly feels heavier. The team that can still defend without fouling, still take care of the ball when the hands get sweaty, and still avoid those brutal scoring droughts in the second half naturally becomes the one you trust more against the spread. The other team will try to drag this into an up and down, let us see what happens kind of night, hoping that a couple of quick runs and some hot shooting tilt the whole thing. Those are 2 very different ways to live, and they both have a certain charm, but only one has actually backed it up in this specific matchup on the floor already. As our first pick for this matchup, the Iona Gales to cover the spread is our full game side pick. For the total, this game feels like a tug of war between what the numbers tell you and what your nerves tell you. On paper, it really does look like a matchup that wants to spill into a lot of points. Sacred Heart has spent the season living in high-scoring territory. They score in the mid-70s. They give up around the same, and most nights their games feel more like a tilted pinball table than a slow chess match. Their defense has been a recurring sore spot. Early advanced numbers had them near the bottom nationally on that side, and even as the season rolled along, they kept having stretches where opponents marched into the paint and scored almost at will. You do not even need to know the exact rankings to feel it. You watch them for a few minutes, and you can tell that getting consistent stops is not really their comfort zone. Iona sits in a different lane, but it is still not what you would call a rock fight team. They live in the low 70s on both ends, which gives them a more balanced profile, yet they are still willing to let it fly from 3 and accept a little variance in exchange for extra scoring punches. That mix creates a funny thing. You have one team that almost invites fast, high-scoring games by the way it plays, and another that is balanced enough to handle that tempo without totally losing its identity. Put them together and it is easy to picture both sides flirting with the mid-70s on the scoreboard, especially if the game gets even slightly loose in stretches. Here is the thing though, tournament basketball has a habit of messing with clean projections. Coaches shorten the rotation, players feel the season sitting on their shoulders, and suddenly those quick early shots that felt fine in January look a lot more risky in March. Second halves often slow down, not because anyone decided to stall, but because every possession turns into a mini decision about whether to attack now or make sure you get something safe. Then in the final few minutes, the whole script can flip again. If the game is tight, you might get a parade of free throws and rushed shots. If it is stretched out, you might instead see long, deliberate possessions and a scoreboard that barely moves. So you have this constant pull, Sacred Heart style and defensive issues pulling the game toward more points, and the neutral court pressure along with tighter rotations tugging it back toward something more controlled. When those two forces collide, the side that quietly wins out often is the one that keeps the game from completely exploding, even if it still feels energetic. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. American University versus Boston University. Tip-off in Boston with a Patriot League quarterfinal on the line always feels a little bigger than the box score suggests. A small gym, close bleachers, and familiar conference foes make the air a bit heavier, and every possession carries that extra heartbeat you get in March. This matchup sits squarely in the context of the current 2025 to 2026 season, with up-to-date rosters and injury info as of March 5, 2026 built into the picture. Boston University rolls in with its core intact, names like Michael McNair, Chance Gladden, and Malcolm Chimezie all part of the current rotation, while Kyrone Alexander is the one notable absence, shut down for the rest of the year with his leg and knee issue. American counters with a clean sheet on the injury side, and the same main group fans have been watching all season, including Sprouse, Iturbe, Nosadis, and Sebastian. Earlier season notes that had Chimezie marked as out have aged out. He is active again and logging minutes, which quietly changes how Boston can handle matchups in the front court and on the glass. From here, everything turns into what most fans care about, how that full-strength look on both sides shapes who covers in a tight postseason setting. The recent history between these two gives a nice starting point. On February 28, Boston went into D.C. and walked away with a 68-65 win that locked in the 4 seed and secured this home game. That road result did not feel like some random hot shooting night. Boston handled key stretches, made enough shots, and more importantly showed it could execute in a close game on Americans' floor when things got uncomfortable. Now the rematch shifts into Case Gym, and that building really does behave like an extra defender. It is compact, loud, and very familiar to a team that has been rolling with 7 wins in its last 8 outings. Boston's offensive profile gives them a very real cushion in a spread conversation, shooting at roughly 49% from the field and close to 40% from beyond the arc this season, with a place among the top handful of teams nationally in three-point percentage. The Terriers are built to create separation in a hurry. A couple of cleanly run possessions, a flare screen here, a miscommunication there, and suddenly a game that felt close is sitting on a 3-possession gap. That kind of shooting gravity is exactly what makes a favorite feel less fragile, because even if there is a lull, you know there is always the threat of a quick 6 or 9-point burst. American, to its credit, does not shrink from that style. The Eagles like to let it fly from deep as well, sitting in the neighborhood of the top 60 nationally in 3-point attempts and scoring around 75 points a night while giving up a little over 71. They stretch defenses horizontally, they are comfortable living at the arc, and on good nights they can absolutely go shot for shot. The catch is on the other side of the ball. American allows roughly 33% from 3, which is not a disaster on paper, but when you overlay that number on top of Boston's elite perimeter touch, it starts to feel like a crack that can widen. It is one thing to survive that rate against average shooting teams. It is another to stand in front of a group that punishes every late closeout. Odds makers have clearly tagged Boston as the stronger side on its home court, which lines up with the way this matchup looks stylistically. The Terriers pair efficient half-court sets with that high-level shooting, and they walk into this one with momentum, a familiar gym, and a rotation that trusts its identity. American brings offense and confidence, but the risk of getting stretched out by a barrage of threes is real, especially if Boston's shooters get comfortable early and the crowd senses a run coming. In a game where covering the spread comes down to who can string together those sharp, well-timed bursts, Boston's combination of recent form, shooting edge, and home floor feel gives them the cleaner path to not just edging past American, but doing it by enough to cash a ticket. As our first pick for this matchup, the Boston University Terriers to cover the spread is our full game side pick. American puts up around 75 points per game and allows a little over 71, while Boston scores about 76 and gives up roughly 74. On a spreadsheet, it looks like a natural invitation for a high-scoring afternoon. Honestly, you can almost hear someone scrolling through an app and saying, "Both teams can score, let us lean higher." The reality of this specific pairing has been different. Look back at the last 3 meetings between these two, and you see 64-62, 48-44, and that recent 68-65 contest. Every one of those finished below the expectations that were set before tip. The pattern is not an accident. These teams know each other's actions, preferences, and counters, and that familiarity has a funny way of slowing things down. Possessions stretch a little longer, coaches lean into sets they trust rather than constant early offense, and shots get more contested as defenders recognize wrinkles they have already seen on film. Both offenses like the three-point line, and both are comfortable stretching the floor, but that does not mean the game turns into a free-flowing shoot-around. In a postseason environment, especially in a conference tournament, coaches tighten rotations, stars stay on the floor longer, and pace often bends toward caution rather than chaos. You see more half-court execution, more time spent hunting specific matchups, and fewer throwaway possessions that inflate the scoreboard. It can feel almost contradictory, too modern, three happy offenses showing up, yet the scoreboard creeping rather than racing. Let me explain. The more each side understands the other's spacing, pet actions, and favorite counters, the tougher it becomes to create truly clean looks early in the clock. The defensive profiles support a more modest scoring expectation when that playoff focus kicks in. American, for all of its offensive punch, still holds teams to around 71 points per game and sits inside the top 150 nationally in defensive efficiency, which puts them in that solid, if not spectacular, territory. Boston's full season numbers look a little looser, roughly 74 allowed, but the recent stretch of games has shown a defense that has sharpened up, especially during that late February run. Rotations are crisper, closeouts have more intention, and the Terriers have shown they can string together stops when they absolutely need them. Layer on the officiating rhythm that often shows up in conference tournaments, and scoring can get squeezed even more. Refs tend to let a bit more contact go, especially on drives, which takes some free throws off the table and forces teams to finish through bodies instead of living at the line. Fewer whistles mean fewer clock stoppages and fewer easy points, and games start to have that grinding, possession-by-possession feel where every missed shot lingers a little longer. In a matchup with recent history leaning lower, two teams that know each other inside and out, and defenses that tighten as the stakes rise, the path that feels most realistic is another contest that lands beneath the number rather than soaring past it. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Loyola, Maryland versus Colgate. Loyola, Maryland heads up to Hamilton for a conference tournament showdown that feels like a test of nerve as much as a test of talent. Colgate has the nicer resume, the better overall record, and the higher seed, and you can see why most models and previews lean their way before the ball is even tipped. They are cleaner on offense, more efficient in how they use each possession, and have spent most of the season looking like the polished program that knows exactly who it is. On paper, that kind of profile usually screams comfortable win for the favorite. Reality has been a lot messier. The first time these two met in Baltimore, Colgate walked out with a 6-point win, but Loyola spent the night hanging around and making things uncomfortable, never really going away. The rematch at Cotterill Court turned into full chaos, with Loyola dragging the Raiders into overtime and Colgate needing a 45-minute effort and a huge scoring night from Jalen Cox just to survive a 3-point decision. So the favorite has handled business on the scoreboard, but not exactly in a calm, stress-free way. It felt more like trying to hold onto a shopping cart with a bad wheel than gliding through a routine sweep. Loyola's entire personality helps explain why those games got so wild. They like a faster rhythm, they are not shy about letting threes fly, and they carry themselves like a group that is perfectly happy trading blows if it means they get more chances to stick a run in your face. Their defense gives plenty back, which is why their overall numbers look noisy, but that volatility is exactly what underdogs secretly love. If you are catching points, you would rather play in a game that swings than in a slow, predictable grind where every mistake feels fatal. Colgate, for its part, is slightly more controlled, but they still tilt toward offense, and that balance has opened the door for teams like Loyola to stay within reach even when the Raiders are favored. Recent betting form adds another little wrinkle. Colgate has been winning more often than not, but against the number they have been a tough team to trust, with a recent stretch where they consistently failed to pull away enough to make backers happy. Loyola, on the other hand, has been covered in that underdog energy for most of the season, sneaking inside the number with late pushes, timely runs, and just enough stubbornness to make every game feel like a mini upset threat. That kind of pattern does not guarantee anything, of course, but it does show how market perception can lag behind what is actually happening on the floor. Availability is always the quiet piece of the puzzle, and here there are no dramatic surprises. The main Loyola contributors you have seen in recent box scores, like Braden Speed and Emmett Adair, are still on the Greyhounds roster and active. Colgate's key names, including Jalen Cox, Andrew Alexienko, and Sam Wright, are locked in on their side as well. No major public report hints at a sudden absence that would flip the script, which means this matchup should look very similar to what we have already seen, only with the added stress of a tournament setting. That tournament pressure is the final seasoning. Loyola walks in with a why-not-us mindset after pushing Colgate to the edge twice already, while Colgate shoulders the expectations that come with being the higher seed in front of the home crowd. When one team is free to swing and the other is trying not to slip up, those extra points become more valuable than ever. As our first pick for this matchup, the Loyola Maryland Greyhounds to cover the spread is our full game side pick. Scoring potential is the star of the show when you look at how these teams play across a full season. Loyola tends to land in the mid-70s on the scoreboard, and they give up even more, which tells you their games rarely feel calm or settled. Colgate lives in a similar scoring neighborhood, putting up strong offensive numbers while allowing plenty on the other side. The shooting gap matters, with Colgate hitting a noticeably higher percentage from the field, but Loyola's willingness to fire shot after shot keeps possessions lively and messy. Put simply, both sides are wired to put points on the board rather than slow everything down. Their head-to-head meetings this year already gave us a preview of what that looks like. The first game finished with Loyola falling by a 6-point margin, and both teams cleared 80. The second turned into that overtime thriller, with Colgate reaching triple digits and Loyola right behind them. Those results were not accidents. They were the natural outcome of two offenses that keep attacking against defenses that bend more than they probably should. Trend-wise, the story keeps pointing in the same direction. Colgate has hit more higher-scoring results than lower ones lately, especially at home, where their comfort level and shooting confidence tend to pop. Loyola's schedule has tilted toward higher totals as well, particularly away from home, where their defensive issues travel and their green light on offense does not really dim. If you scroll through recent results on sites like ESPN or Action Network, you see a steady pattern of games that finish with plenty of scoring, not just a random spike or two. Rotations matter when you are projecting pace and production. Both coaches have leaned on guard-heavy lineups and have not suddenly reinvented their styles late in the season. There is no real hint that either side wants to transform into a slow, grinding, half-court crew overnight. The same core playmakers, the same spacing concepts, and the same preference for getting up shots rather than squeezing the air out of the ball are all still in place. So when you look at this matchup, you are not guessing in the dark, you are following what these rosters have shown for months. Tournament context adds just a bit more fuel to that picture. When a season is on the line, coaches are slower to wave the white flag, and trailing teams are much more willing to extend the game with quick fouls and clock stops. That means extra free throws, extra possessions, and sometimes an extra wave of scoring in the final minute that would not show up in a random January game. A player like Jalen Cox, who has been a strong free throw shooter all season, becomes especially important because late trips to the line not only help the scoreboard but also keep the pace of scoring alive when the clock would otherwise be running. It is the kind of environment where even a brief cold stretch in the middle of the game can be erased by a wild final few minutes. All of that points to a matchup where offense is more likely to steal the spotlight than defense, and where the natural flow, the styles, and the tournament stakes all lean toward another night with an active scoreboard. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Bucknell versus Navy. Bucknell and Navy meet in the Patriot League tournament on March 5th, 2026, and the setup feels like one of those classic March matchups where one side has already spent months proving a point while the other is just trying to hang around long enough to be annoying. Navy has moved through the season like that quiet player in a pickup gym who keeps winning, stays on the court, and never really breaks a sweat about it. A long run of wins, a dominant run through league play, and that top seed at home are not just nice bullet points, they shape how this entire game feels emotionally and mentally. Across from them is Bucknell, coming in as the lower seed after having to grind through a first-round game against Army just to earn this shot, which is a good story but also means extra minutes in the legs and less time to reset. Navy leans on control, and that shows up in how they play every possession. They slow you down, put bodies on you, and squeeze the rhythm out of your offense so that every trip down the floor feels like it takes work. They allow roughly 63 points per game, which sits in that top tier nationally, and still manage to put up about 75 of their own with strong efficiency from the field. Shooting right around 48% and winning by double digits on average gives them that reliable aura you see in teams that know exactly who they are. They also clean the glass at a level that owns the Patriot League, turning missed shots into extra chances for themselves and one-shot possessions for everybody else. Honestly, that rebounding edge is like having a quiet cheat code because it lets them control both tempo and momentum without needing highlight plays. Bucknell arrives with a very different identity. Their offense tends to live in the mid-60s, their defense tends to give up close to 77, and that gap shows up on the scoreboard and in the vibe when they fall behind. They allow opponents to hit nearly 47% from the field and almost 38% from three, which is basically inviting confident shooters to get comfortable. It is a bit like leaving the door cracked open in a storm. The pressure just keeps creeping in until you suddenly realize the room is soaked. The recent history between these two only adds weight to the favorite. They already met twice this season, and Navy handled both meetings without much drama, winning one by a margin of 21 points at 76-55 and the other by 16 at 76-60. Those are not fluky escape wins. Those are statement-type scores where the gap in control, toughness, and execution shows up from the first half through the last few minutes. Now Bucknell walks into Navy's building on short rest, facing a top seed riding a 10-game winning streak and chasing that bigger dream of an NCAA tournament ticket. The underdog angle is fun, and there is always that small voice that says anything can happen, but the pattern here is one of the stronger team leaning on the weaker one until the scoreboard eventually reflects the reality on the floor. As our first pick for this matchup, the Navy midshipman to cover the spread is our full game side pick. Scoring-wise, this matchup feels less like a brutal defensive slugfest and more like a controlled build where points keep stacking up even if the game never turns into pure chaos. Picture a snowball rolling down a hill, not racing wildly, but picking up more and more snow as it goes. Here's the thing, Navy's style feeds that kind of flow. They hold opponents to about 63 points per game on roughly 40% shooting, which is strong, but they also put together a very efficient offense with an offensive rating around 113 and a habit of living in the mid-70s themselves. That balance between stingy defense and clean, organized scoring creates a steady rhythm rather than a slow, ugly grind. Bucknell adds volatility to the scoring picture. Their defense often looks like it is built for three-point contests, allowing almost 77 points per game and getting burned from the perimeter, while their own offense typically lands in the high 60s. So you have one team that scores efficiently and another that leaks points, which usually nudges a game toward a higher scoring feel even if the pace does not look wild on the surface. It is a bit like watching a team that always seems to be a step late on closeouts. Every late hand turns into another clean look, and those clean looks eventually pile up on the scoreboard. When you place these scoring profiles next to each other, the natural expectation sits in that higher scoring band that you often see in solid college games where at least one offense is humming. Their two regular season meetings already reflected that shape. Navy reached 76 in both games, while Bucknell landed in the mid-50s once and the low 60s once, which tells you that even when the underdog struggles, the total scoring does not collapse into a rock fight. Earlier in the month, markets framed this matchup with a moderate total range, and several data-driven models lean toward the more generous scoring side of that range, which fits what we have seen on the floor. Tournament context adds another wrinkle that quietly favors more points. The lower seed has every reason to push a little harder when it falls behind, which can create extra possessions, quicker shots, and a few more broken floor chances. Late in these elimination games, you also get the familiar sequence of intentional fouls, trips to the line, and those last-minute possessions where the trailing team is trying to squeeze a few extra seconds out of the clock. Even garbage time can matter here, because bench players chasing a few extra minutes of glory are not usually out there to dribble the ball around and kill the clock. Honestly, that mix of efficient scoring on one side, leaky defense on the other, and tournament game foul pattern sets up a script where points are more likely to keep flowing than to dry up. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Holy Cross versus Lehigh. Strip away the seeds and the drama graphics on ESPN, and this Patriot League matchup feels pretty straightforward. Holy Cross spent a long winter grinding just to be here, playing the role of the scrappy visitor that had to fight through a first game on the road, while Lehigh has been quietly sitting at home, nursing a second seed, and getting ready for whoever walked through the door. The Crusaders come in with a record that reads 10-21 overall and 5-13 in conference, which tells you a lot by itself. tied at the bottom of the league before they stole that opener at Lafayette and hopped right back on the bus. Lehigh lives in a different neighborhood, sitting at 15-16 and 11-7 in Patriot League play, tied for second and coming in off a stretch where they took 5 of their last 6 games, including strong home wins over Boston University and Bucknell and road wins at Lafayette and American, which is the kind of closing kick coaches talk about all summer. These two have already seen each other twice, and those memories matter in a tournament setting. The first meeting in Bethlehem was a no-nonsense home win for Lehigh, a 66-58 type of game where the favorite did enough and never really lost control. The rematch in February flipped the script, Holy Cross catching a good shooting night and walking away with a 76-67 win that probably stuck on the Lehigh whiteboard for weeks. If you zoom out past that one bad night for Lehigh, the general picture still leans their way. They averaged just over 73 points on solid shooting from the field and from 3, while Holy Cross sits under 68 per game with a negative scoring margin that adds up over 4 months of basketball. In league play, Lehigh sits in the healthier part of the rankings when it comes to volume from deep and efficiency, while Holy Cross hangs around the lower end in those same categories, which is not ideal when you are heading into a gym where the home team feels comfortable letting it fly. There is also the schedule piece, which people love to ignore until you see tired legs on defense. Lehigh is rested, at home, and playing with the security of a bye, with time to prep and practice in their own building. Holy Cross just played an emotional elimination game, turned around quickly, and now faces a team that prefers a faster tempo and a more perimeter-friendly style, which is a rough assignment when you are already a 10 seed. Tournament history in this league usually rewards those top 2 seeds playing on their home floor, not because of some magic, but because over 40 minutes the more balanced roster, with more shooting and more rest, tends to tilt things their way. Nothing on recent reports suggests either side is missing a key rotation player, so the matchup feels like full strength against full strength, and that kind of clean slate generally favors the group with the better offense and the stronger season profile. As our first pick for this matchup, the Lehigh Mountain Hawks to cover the spread is our full game side pick. Games between these two do not really scream mystery, they are more about which version of each offense shows up and how long the defenses can hold out. The first time they played, the pace was slower and the total points landed in a modest range, more of a January grinder where both sides were still figuring things out. By the time they met again in February, things had loosened up, the rhythm felt better, and they combined for a much bigger number on the scoreboard, comfortably clearing what that second meeting was expected to look like. That swing is not random. It lines up with how Lehigh's season has evolved. Their recent games have regularly climbed into higher scoring territory, with multiple contests turning into what feel like track meets, where both teams get up and down and the scoreboard operator barely has time to sit. Lehigh's style is built for that kind of night. They lean into the modern college template, spread the floor, rely on the 3, and accept a bit of chaos if it comes with extra possessions and extra shots. In Patriot League play, they sit in the upper tier for made 3s and efficiency from deep, which means any stretch of even average shooting can snowball quickly. Holy Cross, on the other hand, has spent the season giving up more points than they score, allowing opponents to shoot well from the field and from outside. Over the final stretch of their schedule, that pattern kept repeating, teams regularly reaching the 70s and pushing into the upper 70s against them, which tells you their defense has not exactly turned into a playoff-ready wall. Their own offense is not elite, but it is capable enough that when the game speeds up, they do not completely disappear, and that is all you really need for a higher scoring script, one decent offense and one vulnerable defense sharing the same floor. The way the matchup fits together is what makes the total interesting. Lehigh is comfortable playing faster, comfortable taking early 3s, and comfortable trading baskets for stretches instead of squeezing every possession. Holy Cross struggles most against that exact combination, a team that stretches them out, forces longer closeouts, and tests their rotations off the ball. On top of that, the Crusaders do not excel at taking away the three-point line. Their opponents have knocked down more 3s than they do, on more attempts, at similar or better percentages, which is not exactly ideal when you are walking into a gym where the home side already likes to launch. If Lehigh gets rolling early from deep, the game can open up in a hurry. And once it opens up, it usually stays open. There is also the human side of a win-or-go-home March game that quietly pushes totals upward. A 10 seed that falls behind late is rarely content to just let the clock run. They extend the game, they press, they foul, they try to steal an extra 2 or 3 possessions, because why not? Those last few minutes, with free throws, quick shots, and rushed possessions, often add an extra handful of points that would not show up in a regular January conference game. Fans love it, coaches tolerate it, bettors remember it. All of that, the recent scoring trends, the shaky Holy Cross defense, the three-happy Lehigh offense, and the natural chaos of a tournament night pulls this matchup toward a higher scoring outcome rather than a slow, grind-heavy one. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.